Hello everyone and welcome back to another PC build video. Today's build will be featuring an i7-4770, 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, a 256 gig OCZ solid-state drive, and an MSI GTX 970, all for a grand total of $450. So let's get started. So here we have an HP EliteDesk G1800 small form factor PC. I bought 3 of these things. They were $150 a piece on GovDeals. It was a package deal, it was a bundle pack for all 3 of them, and I got lucky with this, in all honesty. It was a decent deal to begin with these things being $150 a piece, simply due to the fact that they have that processor inside of them, and I would have been able to steal a hard drive out from them as well. But it got better. They were supposed to only have 4 gigs of RAM and a 500 gig mechanical hard drive inside. Instead, they had 20 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig OCZ solid state. So the blue RAM right here on screen right now, that was the RAM that was added on. The green RAM that I'm pulling out was the RAM that was installed initially. So for the build, I didn't end up using 20 gigs of RAM. I ended up only using 16, and you know, that's plenty. That's plenty for gaming purposes. You don't need 20. So I decided I'd save a little bit on the cost of the new motherboard and go for something a little bit higher on the graphics card side, which is why I was able to pick up a 970. And even with that, I was able to get that for a great deal. So right here, just pulling out the CPU cooler, the heatsink for it and everything. And this heatsink CPU cooler combo thing is a little bit funky. With the side-mounted fan on it instead of top-mounted fan, I haven't seen one like that in a little while. It's always interesting to see the different designs for these things. And honestly, I was actually somewhat impressed with the fact that there's almost no dust inside the actual heatsink of this. It's honestly not bad at all. You can pretty much see clean through it. I'll show it on the screen here in just a second or two. But overall, it was a really, really good deal for the baseline components for the system. So, all things said and done, I'm quite happy with the way it worked out, and I'm quite happy I decided to get 3 of these things. So, there will be more builds with similar hardware, similar intros to this coming quite soon. Whether or not you guys want me to actually just do a little music montage to get through it, or actually talk through it, let me know in the comments. There's the motherboard we're using. It's an ASRock H81 numbers and letters, doesn't really matter. Either way, it's a micro ATX motherboard. Tiny little thing, nothing overly special. You can pause and see the model number on that section if you want to take a look at it. Get a little bit of that foam out of the way and put it on top of the anti-static bag, because I don't have an anti-static wrist strap because I just like to live dangerously apparently. Now, with this motherboard, it does have dual channel RAM, it does have the slot for our graphics card, it does not have Wi-Fi. That is the one downside. To get a cheap motherboard that had Wi-Fi, the cheapest I was able to find was around $80, give or take, for a new one. The motherboard is one thing that if I'm going to be building a system that's a medium tier system, I want new, I want fresh. I don't want a used one because I want to know that it's good coming from the factory, and I don't want to have to second guess, okay, was this treated poorly? Was it sort of pieced back together after an accident? Did this happen? Did that happen? Maybe I'd consider going refurbished. Maybe, if it was manufacturer refurbished. But honestly, I would prefer new with the motherboard, and the same goes for the power supply. But there's the motherboard, the graphics card is in, simple enough. For the fan, we have the Cryorig C7.
Really?
I had Becca holding the camera for me in case you guys couldn't tell. I like her really in that section because I make a mess when I build computers. I just throw things everywhere. It's kind of funny seeing her react to it. She's never seen me build a computer before, actually. Considering how many I've made, it's a little bit odd. But here we are, just putting on a little bit of thermal paste for it, nothing overly complex. Don't be stupid like I was initially and forget to take off the lid for the thermal paste and wonder, hey, why is it not coming out? Yeah, I did that. 43 computers and I still forget to take off the little screw off lid for the thermal paste sometimes. So here, what I'm actually doing, I'm wrapping the cabling around the fan itself, just so I can get an idea of how I'm going to be putting it on the motherboard and how I can do it without taking up as much, well, how I can do it and take up as much of the fan as possible, as much of the fan cable as possible, I should say. That way it's not just sort of hanging around, flopping about. So you'll notice I actually did readjust the positioning on it, shifted it around 90 degrees, and now we can actually loop it around the fan again, and it will not flail around out in the wild context. It is what it is. So we get that attached, and everything's peachy. Now, the only things left to do with this build, aside from that, would be install the graphics card, of course. That's something we will do after we put it in the case. Put the RAM on board, which is an easy enough thing to do. Right there, I'm just getting a good look, making sure everything is sealed properly, making sure that the screws are tightened properly, so on and so forth. I know that it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do, but I always like to double check that to make sure you have a good seal, make sure nothing's loose or wobbling. It's just a little bit of mild paranoia that I have. So, here we are, we're going to put the RAM sticks back into place. These ones, of course, are the 8 gig sticks that we pulled out of the G1, and honestly, that's my one real complaint with it. They're blue. It doesn't match the aesthetic of the build. Everything else is black, white. The motherboard technically has some brown to it, but when it's in the case, you can't see that at all. So, you know, minor aesthetic gripe. It's not too bad considering that the edges that face out on the RAM aren't colored, but either way, it irks me ever so slightly. And here's the case that we have. It is a, oh wow, I'm drawing a blank on the name. A something Vortex. Wow, I'm bad. I'm bad out of 10. Either way, this case actually came with a power supply pre-installed. Funny thing about it is that it actually was, well, it was faulty. I went through the trouble, I did a little bit of sleeving on the power supply to cover some of the rainbow cables that would be showing. There's the information on it. It's a Raidmax Vortex, that's the name of it. Wow. Took me a little bit there, sorry about that. But I had run some of the cables, I'd gotten everything set. I had an adapter that I was going to actually be using that was going from SATA to 6-pin, which is something you can do. I had 2 of them I was going to run and use that for the graphics card. Didn't end up needing to do that. I ran to the store instead, picked up a Corsair CX550M modular power supply. Got the job done quite well. And unfortunately, the video for the rest of it, for the rest of assembly, did get corrupted, I'm sorry to say. But here we have the finished product. All we did really was slide the solid state into place, drop the motherboard in, and throw the graphics card on. It's really straightforward to do. Did a little bit of cable routing. Had to use a Y splitter to power the front panel fans that I had thrown in there. They're just generic fans, nothing special. And after finishing up with the hardware side of things, we move on to the software side, my least favorite part of building a computer. I like playing with expensive Legos more, can you really blame me? I like that more than messing with software and installation for drivers and all that. That's just boring. It's more sitting around and waiting and doing nothing. So, you know, that said, for what we actually did with it, we installed the Windows 10 Pro operating system. It was a free upgrade from Windows 7 Pro, so I figured why not. We installed Steam, I downloaded Dark Souls for a few tests, I actually downloaded a few other games as well. I downloaded Overwatch, I downloaded Rocket League, I did Isaac, I did Dead Cells, just for the sake of having some variety with it this time. And I'm kind of an idiot, so I forgot that I moved it all to a flash drive, and out of habit, I bring that same flash drive with me to New York so I can do some editing while I'm on the go. I kind of left my flash drive in New York with all of the footage on it, aside from the Dark Souls footage, which I had moved on a different flash drive because I couldn't find the first one I usually use. So long story short, I'm stupid, I forgot where I put it, I forgot that I brought it. I don't even honestly know if it's in New York or not, I just can't find it, so I'd assume it's there. But either way, all we're left with is Dark Souls, but that's okay, you guys know what Dark Souls looks like, or what it should look like, so it's fine, right? So, basically, with the footage, you might have noticed how I said I transferred it from the computer to a flash drive. When I say it's from the computer, I mean from the computer that was built. It was actually recorded with Shadowplay. So it's not recorded through an Elgato, it's not recorded through any external means, going to a different computer like I normally do my work. This one was recorded directly with Shadowplay. So, the games were running at 1080p, 60 frames per second, not a single slowdown, no frame rate drops, no screen tearing, no nothing. And they were able to record with Shadowplay, and everything looks nice and pretty. I can't complain about it at all. So everything worked out very well, especially for that $450 price point. And as far as the actual price breakdown for parts, let's just go over that super quick. First off, the motherboard was $55. Other than that, the processor, the RAM, and the solid-state drive cost $150. The graphics card, the 970, I was able to snag for $140, which is not a bad deal on its own. On top of that, we had to buy the case, which I believe was $25. The CPU cooler was $30, and the other power supply was $50. I swear I know how to read. Was $50 as well. So all said and done, $450. That's the breakdown right there. So that's all I've got for you guys in this one. That covers the system, that covers the build, that covers the tests. That's everything that we did. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. If you did, then please drop a like. This is a relatively new thing I've started doing on the channel, so I'd appreciate the support with that. If you don't want to see it ever again, then just tell me how much I suck down in the comments, and I'll get on with my life. That said and done, thank you guys for watching. I hope you did enjoy this, and I will see you all next time.